The storm didn't fall from the sky. It attacked it. Wind slammed through the forest like a living thing, wild enough to bend the tallest pines until their branches scraped the drenched earth. Thunder growled overhead, long and broken, like the voice of some ancient creature waking up angry. And in the middle of it, half running, half falling, stumbled a girl who looked like she should not still be alive. Arin. Her name wasn't spoken, not even whispered, but it lived in every shuddered breath she dragged through her lungs. Her dark hair was soaked flat against her face, her skin streaked with mud, blood, and rain. One hand clutched her ribs where a deep gash burned every time she moved. The other arm curled protectively around the tiny pup pressed against her chest, no bigger than a loaf of bread, shaking hard enough to rattle bones. She didn't have the luxury of stopping. Not for breath. Not for pain. Not for fear. Behind her, through the thunder and wind and cracking trees, came a sound far more terrifying. Men. Hunters. Wolves. Angry ones. Voices, blurry and distorted by the storm, rose and fell behind her. The words weren't clear, but the tone was. They were hunting her. They were close. And they were not going to stop. Arin pushed harder, even though her legs trembled like they were made of wet paper. The storm made everything worse. Every raindrop stung like a needle on her skin. Every gust of wind stole the warmth from the 7 tiny pups trying to keep up with her. They followed her because they had nowhere else to go. Because their mother was gone. Because Arin was the only living soul who cared whether they breathed through the next hour. Lightning ripped across the sky, lighting up the whole forest for a heartbeat. In that 1 second of brightness, Arin saw everything she wished she could forget. The twisted branches that looked like hands trying to drag her down, the deep pools of mud waiting to swallow her feet, and the narrow path ahead, if you could call it a path, winding like a frightened snake through the dark, dripping trees. Then the world went black again. She stumbled. The pup in her arm whimpered. The others yelped softly behind her, their tiny paws splashing through puddles as they struggled to stay close. "Stay with me, please," she breathed out, but the wind stole the sound from her mouth. Her breath came out in short, shaky bursts. Every inhale burned. Every exhale felt like surrender. She was an Omega. The lowest rank. The one who was supposed to bow, obey, and disappear when told. But even an Omega had limits. And she had been pushed far, far past hers. Arin didn't dare look over her shoulder. He didn't need to. She could feel them, those hot, hungry eyes watching her from the trees. She could feel the ground tremble beneath heavy paws closing the distance. The storm had slowed her, but not them. They belonged to the forest. He didn't. Her foot slipped in a patch of wet leaves. Her knee hit the ground so hard she tasted blood. The pup against her chest squealed with fear. The others froze, whimpering, uncertain where to go, whether to run or stay. Arin grit her teeth, swallowing the pain clawing up her leg. She pulled herself up, but her body felt heavy, exhausted, desperate. There was nothing heroic about her in that moment. Just a girl trying not to break while the world decided whether she deserved to live another minute. A low growl vibrated through the trees. This one was close. Too close. Arin pressed the pup tighter to her chest and forced herself to move, each step a battle, each breath a small miracle. The storm was her enemy, but tonight it might also be the only thing keeping her alive. It masked her scent, blurred her tracks, drowned the noise of her footsteps. But it also drowned her hope. The forest felt alive around her, watching, judging. The trees leaned inward as though whispering secrets she couldn't afford to hear. The branches swayed like fingers pointing her out to the hunters. Everything felt deliberate. Personal. She reached a small clearing barely wide enough to call a break in the trees. But here the storm was fiercer. The wind crashed against her body like a wall. Lightning illuminated her figure again. A small, drenched Omega with 7 pups trailing behind her like shadows trying their best not to disappear. Her legs buckled again. She forced them straight. She had to keep moving. For the pups. For the promise she made. For the friend she failed. Her shoes, thin, worn, and soaked, sank into a patch of mud so deep her ankle twisted. Pain shot up her leg like fire. Her vision blurred at the edges as she cried out silently, biting down on her own lip to keep the sound from drawing the hunters closer. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, uncertain, afraid, trying to help but unable to. She wasn't strong enough to shift. Her wolf wasn't strong enough to save her. She had lived her entire life as an Omega with a wolf that barely whispered. Tonight the whisper felt like a faint apology. Another growl cut through the storm. Arin forced herself forward, limping harder now. Her breath trembled as she clutched the pup closer. "Mama's here. Don't make a sound," she whispered, her voice shaking so badly it was hardly a voice at all. The pup shivered against her chest, trusting her even in terror. The other 6 pups formed a tight circle around her feet as if trying to shield her. As if tiny, trembling bodies could stop the monsters coming for them. She wished she could shield them the same way. She wished she were stronger. She wished she wasn't what she was. She wasn't a normal Omega. She never had been. There was a heat inside her, something she couldn't control. Something dangerous. Something that flickered beneath her skin like a silver flame trying to break free. Something that had gotten her exiled. Something that had gotten others killed. He hated it. She feared it. And tonight she needed it. But it refused to come. Her vision blurred again as the storm pushed her deeper into the choking darkness. The rain slapped the leaves above her so hard it sounded like applause from ghosts. Thunder rolled, echoing the violence brewing inside her chest. She glanced down at the pups. Their fur was drenched, their tiny forms shaking violently, their breaths short and scared. But their eyes were full of trust. Why, he didn't know. But that trust was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. She spotted it then, a hollowed-out tree trunk big enough for her to crawl into. Shelter. Not safety but shelter. It was all she needed. Her body moved on instinct, dragging herself and the pups through the mud and rain. When she reached the hollow, she pushed the pups inside first, carefully, gently. They scrambled in, their small bodies huddling instinctively together for warmth. She followed, her back scraping harsh bark, her breath slicing through her chest in agony. The hollow was dark, cramped, cold. Rain poured around them, but inside they were shielded, barely, from the worst of the storm. Arin pulled the shivering pups close, wrapping her arms around them, letting her body become their only source of heat. She leaned her head back against the wet bark and finally allowed herself one broken, exhausted exhale. For a moment there was silence. Only her heartbeat. Only their soft whimpers. Only the sound of rain pounding the world outside. But the silence didn't last. A quick, sharp snap of a branch broke through the storm. Hunters. Too close. Her fingers tightened around the pups. Second snap. The third. They were surrounding the tree. Arin squeezed her eyes shut. Memories hit her in jagged flashes. The council shouting over her. The pup's mother bleeding out in her arms. A voice whispering into her ear. You should have been dead with them. Her throat tightened. Not from fear. From heartbreak. She pressed her forehead to the smallest pup's fur, breathing in its warmth like she was trying to memorize what safety felt like. The pups pressed back against her, wordless, trembling, loyal. Weak. Hungry. Orphaned. But loyal. She wasn't allowed to break. Not here. Not tonight. Not while they needed her. Lightning cracked again, closer this time. The hollow lit up in a harsh burst of white, revealing Arin's wide eyes, her bloody cheek, the fear shaking her bones, and that faint glimmer, barely visible, of something glowing beneath her skin. Something she couldn't control. Something she didn't understand. Something the hunters were terrified of. The storm roared louder. The world felt smaller. Her heart hammered harder. And then stillness. Total, heavy, suffocating stillness. Even the storm seemed to pause. That was when Arin realized. They weren't the only ones hiding in the dark. Something else was out there. Something watching. Something waiting. Something that wasn't a hunter at all. Her hand trembled as she touched the pup's ear gently, her breath catching in her throat. If your heart is racing already, the narrator whispers softly, almost comforting, almost breathless, then breathe. And subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections. Here, your emotions matter. The storm resumed its fury outside the hollow. Arin wasn't sure the storm was her biggest problem anymore. Something moved in the shadows. And it knew her name. The storm halted so abruptly it felt as though someone had reached down from the sky and muted the world with the back of their hand. One breath the rain hammered the earth, the next, silence. Heavy. Suspicious. Wrong. Arin's ears twitched. The pups stiffened beneath her, tiny bodies pressed tight against her ribs. The air held the sharp metallic taste of something old, older than the forest itself, and it vibrated through the ground, up her palms, into her bones. Her throat tightened. Not thunder. Not wind. Not a normal presence. Something powerful had entered the clearing. She rose slowly, positioning herself between the pups and the open darkness. Every branch stood frozen. Every leaf hung suspended. Even the mist refused to move. Then, a shadow detached itself from the ridge above her. Broad. Moving with a precision too controlled to be human, too fluid to be fully wolf. He descended the slope without disturbing a single stone, as though the mountain recognized him and shifted beneath his steps. His eyes glowed first. Not yellow. Not gold. but a deep, molten amber that flickered like the heart of a dying star. Arin's heartbeat slipped into her throat. The Alpha King. Stories whispered of him, whispers she never believed. They called him a phantom, a curse, a king who didn't rule but punished, a wolf whose rage once tore an entire battalion in half. A creature touched by prophecy and tragedy both. He was not supposed to be real. And he was definitely not supposed to know where she was. Arin bared her teeth instinctively, the snarl ripping out before she could think. Every muscle in her body braced, ready to take the full brunt of a king's wrath if she had to. She lowered her stance, shielding the pups fully behind her. His steps didn't falter. He only tilted his head, slow, deliberate, assessing her with an intensity that felt like a hand sliding down her spine. Arin. He said her name like he'd known it long before she ever existed. Her snarl died in her throat, replaced by something colder, fear sharpened by disbelief. She hadn't introduced herself. She hadn't spoken a word. Her pulse hammered. How? The question folded on itself. Kael's expression didn't change, but something in the air did. A faint tremor, remorse? Weariness? Regret? He stopped a few feet away. Close enough that she could feel the heat of him, an aura so strong it pressed against her skin like a physical force. The hunters, he said quietly. They're closing in. His voice was deep, resonant, carrying the weight of someone who never learned how to soften a warning. Yet beneath it, buried under layers of command, there was something darker. Heavy. Unspoken. Guilt. But guilt for what? Arin forced her claws deeper into the soil. Don't come closer. She expected him to laugh, mock, dismiss her threat entirely. He didn't. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered down to the pups trembling behind her, then back up, slower this time, studying her like she was something he wasn't prepared to face. He hated the way her pulse reacted. She hated the way her wolf reacted more. That strange pull, magnetic, instinctive, tugged at her center, as though her spirit recognized something her mind refused to accept. Her wolf pressed forward, ears high, not in fear but interest. Attraction. Wanted. Uninvited. Unexplainable. She forced it down, locking her jaw. I don't need your help, Arin spat. Kael's shoulders rose and fell in a breath so controlled it sounded rehearsed. I didn't come here for negotiation. His gaze swept the treeline again. More alert now. More urgent. They're 30 heartbeats away. He wasn't exaggerating. Arin felt it too. The shift in wind. The distant crunch of boots. The faint tang of silver dust drifting on the air like poison. Her pulse spiked, but she kept her stance. You expect me to believe you aren't leading them? His eyes sharpened. No one hunts in my territory without my consent, he said. Then quieter, and I have not given it. Another lie. No, not a lie. Something else. Something caught in his voice like a blade twisting. She didn't understand him. He didn't need to. Arin shifted her weight, ready to fight if she had to. Her ribs ached where the earlier wound burned, but she grit her teeth. She'd die before letting these pups be taken. One of them, a tiny gray-furred runt, peeked out from behind her leg and growled at Kael. A soft, trembling sound, equal parts bravery and foolishness. Kael's gaze flicked downward. His expression changed just slightly, something unreadable tightening behind his eyes. Not amusement. Not offense. Something else. Recognition. Memory. Loss. He spoke without looking at her. They're not your blood. Arin's heartbeat stopped. He was right. But he shouldn't have known that either. Stay away from them, she snapped. I'm not here for them, Kael said. Then he finally lifted his. The storm halted so abruptly it felt as though someone had reached down from the sky and muted the world with the back of their hand. One breath the rain hammered the earth, the next, silence. Heavy. Suspicious. Wrong. Arin's ears twitched. The pups stiffened beneath her, tiny bodies pressed tight against her ribs. The air held the sharp metallic taste of something old, older than the forest itself, and it vibrated through the ground, up her palms, into her bones. Her throat tightened. Not thunder. Not wind. Not a normal presence. Something powerful had entered the clearing. She rose slowly, positioning herself between the pups and the open darkness. Every branch stood frozen. Every leaf hung suspended. Even the mist refused to move. Then, a shadow detached itself from the ridge above her. Broad. Moving with a precision too controlled to be human, too fluid to be fully wolf. He descended the slope without disturbing a single stone, as though the mountain recognized him and shifted beneath his steps. His eyes glowed first. Not yellow, not gold, but a deep, molten amber that flickered like the heart of a dying star. Arin's heartbeat slipped into her throat. The Alpha King. Stories whispered of him, whispers she never believed. They called him a phantom, a curse, a king who didn't rule but punished, a wolf whose rage once tore an entire battalion in half. A creature touched by prophecy and tragedy both. He was not supposed to be real. And he was definitely not supposed to know where she was. Arin bared her teeth instinctively, the snarl ripping out before she could think. Every muscle in her body braced, ready to take the full brunt of a king's wrath if she had to. She lowered her stance, shielding the pups fully behind her. His steps didn't falter. He only tilted his head, slow, deliberate, assessing her with an intensity that felt like a hand sliding down her spine. Arin. He said her name like he'd known it long before she ever existed. Her snarl died in her throat, replaced by something colder, fear sharpened by disbelief. She hadn't introduced herself. She hadn't spoken a word. Her pulse hammered. How? The question folded on itself. Kael's expression didn't change, but something in the air did. A faint tremor, remorse? Weariness? Regret? He stopped a few feet away. Close enough that she could feel the heat of him, an aura so strong it pressed against her skin like a physical force. The hunters, he said quietly. They're closing in. His voice was deep, resonant, carrying the weight of someone who never learned how to soften a warning. Yet beneath it, buried under layers of command, there was something darker. Heavy. Unspoken. Guilt. But guilt for what? Arin forced her claws deeper into the soil. Don't come closer. She expected him to laugh, mock, dismiss her threat entirely. He didn't. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered down to the pups trembling behind her, then back up, slower this time, studying her like she was something he wasn't prepared to face. He hated the way her pulse reacted. She hated the way her wolf reacted more. That strange pull, magnetic, instinctive, tugged at her center, as though her spirit recognized something her mind refused to accept. Her wolf pressed forward, ears high, not in fear but interest. Attraction. Wanted. Uninvited. Unexplainable. She forced it down, locking her jaw. I don't need your help, Arin spat. Kael's shoulders rose and fell in a breath so controlled it sounded rehearsed. I didn't come here for negotiation. His gaze swept the treeline again. More alert now. More urgent. They're 30 heartbeats away. He wasn't exaggerating. Arin felt it too. The shift in wind. The distant crunch of boots. The faint tang of silver dust drifting on the air like poison. Her pulse spiked, but she kept her stance. You expect me to believe you aren't leading them? His eyes sharpened. No one hunts in my territory without my consent, he said. Then quieter, and I have not given it. Another lie. No, not a lie. Something else. Something caught in his voice like a blade twisting. She didn't understand him. He didn't need to. Arin shifted her weight, ready to fight if she had to. Her ribs ached where the earlier wound burned, but she grit her teeth. She'd die before letting these pups be taken. One of them, a tiny gray-furred runt, peeked out from behind her leg and growled at Kael. A soft, trembling sound, equal parts bravery and foolishness. Kael's gaze flicked downward. His expression changed just slightly, something unreadable tightening behind his eyes. Not amusement. Not offense. Something else. Recognition. Memory. Loss. He spoke without looking at her. They're not your blood. Arin's heartbeat stopped. He was right. But he shouldn't have known that either. Stay away from them, she snapped. I'm not here for them, Kael said. Then he finally lifted his gaze and locked eyes with her. The pull hit her like a punch. Not gentle. Not warm. A raw, instinctive tether, wolf to wolf, force to force, carved into her before she took her first breath. Her legs weakened. Her chest tightened. Her wolf surged with a growl that was not fear but something startlingly close to longing. Arin cursed under her breath and looked away, breaking the connection before it consumed her. Kael inhaled sharply as though he felt the severed moment physically. "Look at me." His voice softened, not command, not threat, but something heavier. "Arin." "No," she whispered. "I know what that is. I refuse it." "You can't refuse instinct. Watch me." His jaw clenched. Another heartbeat passed. Another branch snapped in the distance. "Hunters." He took one step closer. She snarled, "Move again and I swear." "Your wound is getting worse." Her teeth clicked shut. She didn't remember showing weakness. She didn't remember staggering. But he had seen it anyway, maybe smelled the blood leaking slowly beneath her ribs. "I said stay back. And I said the hunters are almost here." The air tightened between them. Two wolves. Two histories. Two lives shaped by loss. Neither trusting. Neither yielding. The pups pressed closer against her legs, sensing the rising tension. Their tiny whimpers filled the air, fragile and desperate. Kael exhaled slowly. "I'm trying to keep you alive." "No," she whispered. "You're trying to control the situation." A faint, humorless sound escaped him. "You think that's what this is?" "I know alphas," Arin said. "Especially kings." His eyes darkened. "You don't know me." "Good." Another crack echoed through the woods. Closer now. Too close. Kael's expression changed. Not anger. Not irritation. Decision. He moved. Fast. Arin jerked back, claws digging into the soil as she prepared to launch herself at him. But her body betrayed her. The world spun. Her vision flickered black, then white, then black again. Her ribs burned like an open flame. The ground slipped beneath her. Her knees buckled. "No," she managed, reaching out instinctively to steady herself. But the earth never met her. A strong hand caught her waist. Another steadied the back of her shoulders. Her body collided with heat, his heat, and she felt the world lock into place around that single point of contact. Kael's breath brushed her ear. "I warned you." She wanted to shove him away. Wanted to snarl, fight, run. But her strength had vanished like smoke. The pups whimpered, circling her ankles. Kael lowered himself to one knee, still holding her upright with terrifying gentleness. His arms were steady, immovable, like the mountains themselves had wrapped around her. "You pushed yourself too far," he murmured. "You're collapsing." "Don't," she tried, voice cracking. "Don't touch me." He didn't let go. "Either you stand," he said softly, "or I carry you." Her breath hitched. "And if I refuse both?" she whispered. He leaned closer, so close she felt the warmth of his pulse against her cheek. "Then," he said, voice deepening, "I catch you every time you fall." Her vision dimmed at the edges. The world tilted again. The last thing she felt was his arms tightening around her, lifting her with ease, gathering the pups with a quiet command of presence alone. Their tiny hearts thudded against her fading awareness. And then, before the darkness fully swallowed her, she heard his voice, quiet and raw. "I failed you once. I won't fail again." Arin's eyes fluttered open to dim firelight that painted the walls of a cave in shades of gold and shadow. The sharp scent of herbs filled the air, sage, lavender, something bitter and healing all at once. She was on a rough blanket, the pups huddled tightly at her side, their small chests rising and falling in shallow breaths. For the first time since the storm, the world was quiet, safe for now. But the weight of her own heartbeat reminded her that danger was never far away. And then she saw him. Kael, kneeling beside a small brazier, his silhouette carved in shadow and firelight, every line of his body taut with vigilance. His amber eyes softened slightly when they met hers, but not entirely. They were too sharp, too aware. Watching. Waiting. Judging. Protecting. She wanted to turn away. She wanted to shove him, push him out of her life. But every inch of her body refused to obey. The warmth radiating from him, the quiet steadiness, the silent command to survive, it settled into her like a strange, unwelcome anchor. Her mind began to drift, as it always did when she felt safe enough to think. Flashes of memory struck her in shards, like splintered glass pressing into her chest. She had been born of a bloodline whispered about in corners of the pack where children were forbidden to play. Her mother, a silver-haired witch of the shifter realm, had taught her to hide the fire that danced in her veins, the silver flame that could burn through stone if she lost control. The first time it manifested in full she had been 7. A training ground crowded with her packmates had erupted in chaos. Silver fire licked at the edges of the forest floor, singeing uniforms, igniting terror in every eye except hers. She had tried to control it, but power so ancient, so raw, did not bend to her will. The council had screamed. Her peers had fled. And the elders, in their fear, had pronounced her dangerous. A weapon. A curse. And then the exile. She remembered the cold, sharp taste of betrayal, the moment she was cast from everything she knew. She had walked alone through the snow-covered forests, bleeding, terrified, yet alive. Alive because the wolf inside her refused to let her die. Alive because she carried something precious. A promise, fragile as glass, to protect a group of small orphan lives that depended on her entirely. The pup's mother, her friend, her confidant, had died before Arin could save her. She had held the lifeless body trembling and whispered words she would never forget. "Take care of them. Promise me." And she had promised. 7 tiny hearts that beat under her protection, fragile and dependent, and she had kept them close ever since. They had followed her through storms, darkness and fear. Each paw step a reminder of the bond she had vowed never to break. A soft sound drew her attention back to the cave. Kael's hand hovered near her wound, the herbs already pressed against her bloodied side. She flinched when their fingers brushed. Her wolf surged, warning, wary, and yet her heart betrayed her with a rapid flutter. Kael noticed. He did not pull away. His gaze met hers, flickering with a complexity that words could never hold. Regret. Compassion. Awareness of the life she had been forced to bear alone. He saw her not as a broken girl, not as an omega, not as a weapon, but as a survivor. "Don't move yet," he said softly, almost a whisper. "It will sting, but it needs to heal." Arin's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she didn't need him, that she could survive, that she had always survived. But every time her voice tried to form the words, it caught in her chest. The storm outside had faded, yes, but the tempest inside her had only grown stronger. Fear, anger, shame, and the lingering, unwelcome thrill of being seen. The firelight flickered in his eyes as he carefully cleaned the wound. Their hands brushed again, just briefly, but long enough to send a pulse through her like silver lightning striking her nerves. She jerked her hand back, but not fully. Her wolf pressed forward, curious, confused, protective. Kael's amber eyes softened ever so slightly. "You carry more than just pain," he murmured. "I can feel it in you. The strength. The fire you try to hide. It's overwhelming." Arin's lips parted, trembling, but no words came. She couldn't deny it. Not now. Not with him. Not when he had caught her at the edge of collapse and carried her like she was the most fragile thing in the world. And yet, at the same time, something worth saving. Her memory flickered again. A training ground ablaze. The silver flame she could not control. The council screaming. Exile. Betrayal. And the tiny lives she had sworn to protect. The 7 pups pressed against her side, sensing the rise of her own power, quivering as though they could feel the faint echo of the silver fire stirring inside her. They trusted her, followed her, loved her in the most unwavering way. And she feared she would fail them. Kael leaned closer. "You are not cursed," he said softly. "You are chosen. But you will have to believe it yourself." His words struck her like ice and flame at once. She wanted to recoil, to reject him, to claim that he didn't understand. But his hand brushing hers again, the quiet insistence of his presence, forced a crack in her armor. Her wolf whimpered in relief. And in that cave, under flickering firelight, surrounded by the 7 small lives depending on her, Arin realized that for the first time since her exile, she was not completely alone. The next morning, Kael guided her out of the cave. The forest was quiet, untouched by the storm from the night before. Mist curled between ancient oaks, and the sunlight broke through in thin, trembling shafts, illuminating the path ahead. They walked in silence, the pups trailing close behind, their small paws leaving shallow prints in the damp earth. Arin's mind raced with questions. Who was Kael truly? How had he known her name? And why did his presence make her pulse feel like it would shatter her ribs? They came upon an ancient grove, older than any story she had ever heard. The trees were massive, their trunks twisted with age and wisdom, leaves rustling with a language she could almost understand. Stones covered in moss formed intricate patterns on the forest floor, and when she stepped upon them, faint glows erupted from runes carved into the rocks, illuminating the grove like the heart of the moon had been pressed into the earth itself. Arin's breath caught. He had never seen anything like it. Kael stopped beside her. His gaze swept the grove, noting the runes, the faint silhouettes of wolf spirits lingering at the edges of her vision. He didn't touch her, but his presence steadied her like a shield against her own fear. "You're seeing them," he said almost reverently. "The spirits. They wait for you." "Wait for me? Why?" Her voice trembled. The pups whined softly, pressing closer to her legs. They sensed her rising tension, the subtle awakening of something ancient inside her. Kael's eyes softened. "You are the one the prophecy speaks of." He laughed, short, sharp, bitter. "A prophecy? You mean I'm a weapon? A danger? A curse? That's what I've been told my entire life." "No," he said firmly. "You are the flame bearer. The child of the lost moon. The one who will bring balance where there is chaos. You have power, yes, but not to destroy. To save. To protect." Arin trembled. Her chest felt tight, lungs squeezing. I can't. I will hurt them. I've already burned, already destroyed. I am a danger to everyone I touch." Kael stepped closer, the amber of his eyes blazing like sunlight over the grove. "Then you must learn control. You must trust yourself, and trust me. You are not alone anymore." The pups whimpered. They hid partially behind her legs, their small bodies alert and anxious. They felt the stirrings of something deep and old, something that resonated with the silver fire inside Arin. Arin's wolf shifted inside her, restless and raw. She pressed her palms to her knees, trembling. She wanted to run, to hide, to deny everything Kael had said. And yet the grove felt alive with her presence. The spirits called her name softly, the wind carrying it in whispers only she could hear. "Flame bearer. Child of the lost moon." Her pupils dilated. Her fingers itched. Every instinct screamed to flee. But the pull was stronger, magnetic, insistent. Her destiny, whatever it was, had chosen her long before she could decide. Kael knelt beside her once more. "Do you understand what this means?" His voice was low, patient, layered with authority and caution. "The pack fears you. Others will seek to control or destroy you. But you can change the world. Right now it's just beginning. You can feel it, can't you?" She shook her head. Her voice caught. I don't know if I'm ready." "You are," Kael said, placing a hand on the back of her shoulder, careful not to press too hard. "You just need to accept it." The grove pulsed softly beneath her feet. Light, energy, something intangible hummed through the air. The pups whined again, pressing closer. Arin could feel it too. The pull, the awakening, the power rising from within her like molten silver. Her throat tightened. She feared losing control. She feared harming the ones she loved most. Her wolf pressed forward, restless and powerful, echoing her fear and longing simultaneously. Kael's eyes softened. He didn't force her. He simply waited, a patient anchor in the storm of awakening inside her. "You are not a weapon," he said gently. "You are the light in a dark world. And I will not let you face it alone." Arin's knees shook. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. The pups pressed against her once more, small hearts beating against her own, reminding her of what she had promised. They depended on her. She depended on them. And now, more than ever, she felt the pull of something greater than herself. The destiny she could no longer deny. The grove that had felt alive, protective, sacred, suddenly felt smaller, oppressive as dissenters emerged from the shadows. Wolves with eyes like knives circled them, low growls vibrating through the earth. Their paws dug into moss and stone, their claws raking the dirt like daggers. The air became thick with accusation, tension curling like smoke around Arin's trembling frame. "You're a danger," one of the older alphas hissed, stepping forward, teeth bared. "This girl carries power no pack should harbor. She will burn us all." Arin's heart seized in her chest. She felt the pups press against her legs, tiny claws digging into her shins, their frightened growls urgent and sharp. Her wolf flared, instinctively defensive. "Stay back," she hissed, voice quivering but unyielding. "They're mine. All of them. I promised." Her words drew a sharp gasp from the council members who had followed. they whispered, alarm threading through their fear. Some of the younger wolves circled her, jaws snapping, claws poised. The tension pulsed through the grove like a live wire, and Arin's breath came in rapid, shallow bursts. Then a hand reached for one of the pups. Just one, a small gray thing trembling with fear. Arin lunged, teeth bared, claws flashing instinctively. The fury inside her, a mixture of fear, love, and rage, erupted with a force that made the air tremble. The offender yelped and retreated, but the warning had been clear. She would not allow harm to touch the ones she had vowed to protect. Kael stepped forward, his presence a living shield. His wolf roared low in his chest, ears flattened, eyes like molten gold. Enough, he said, his voice calm but edged with steel. She is under my protection. A rival alpha emerged, broad and imposing, with silver scars that mapped decades of conquest. Choose your throne, Kael, he spat. Choose it or the girl. You cannot have both. The grove erupted. Fists slammed against fur, claws ripped bark, and teeth found flesh. Accusations cut sharper than blades. She will bring war, some cried. She is the end of us all. Arin tried to move, tried to protect the pups, tried to hold herself steady amid the chaos. Her wolf surged in response to the fear around her, and the silver flame flickered just beneath her skin, threatening to ignite. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to save the pups from the violence that tore through the grove like wildfire. Kael fought beside her, a pillar of power and restraint. His fists struck with precision, his wolf weaving through the chaos, protecting her without breaking her fragile heart further. Yet even he felt the strain, the council's warning weighing on his mind. If she stays, war follows. Arin felt their eyes on her, judgment, fear, accusation, and her chest heaved. The truth burned hotter than the storm that raged inside her. She was not wanted. Her power was too dangerous, her presence too volatile. The pups whimpered, pressed close, small bodies shaking in terror, and the only thing she could do was run. She tore through the grove, heart hammering, limbs slick with sweat and mud, her wolf propelling her forward. Behind her, the world erupted in chaos. Fists, claws, and fury chased her, but she didn't look back. She couldn't. All she could see were the small, innocent lives that depended on her, and she felt the weight of failure crushing her chest. The river ran cold and fast. Mist rose from its surface like whispers, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Arin knelt on the wet bank, the pups curled around her in huddled warmth, breathing soft, rhythmic prayers for safety. Her chest heaved, tears mingling with raindrops from the earlier storm. Her wolf whimpered softly, alert yet tentative, sensing the quiet that followed the violence. Then he appeared. Kael, silent as shadow, moving like a predator but gentle as a father's touch. He did not approach too closely at first, respecting the fragile fortress of her grief, but he did not leave either. His amber eyes studied her with a mix of caution, curiosity, and something deeper she could not name. I followed, he said quietly. His voice carried the weight of unspoken regrets, of battles fought and lost, of ghosts that lingered in the corners of his mind. Arin's eyes flicked to him, wary, exhausted. I ruined everything, she whispered. They'll never forgive me. I can't keep them safe. Kael knelt beside her. The fire of his presence radiated warmth into the cold riverbank. I've lost people too, he murmured, voice low. Someone I loved. Someone I couldn't save. I failed. My wolf. Once I lost control. Destroyed everything. I know the fear, the guilt, the ache in your chest. You are not alone in this, Arin. Her hands trembled as she reached for one of the pups, fingers brushing the soft fur. The wolf inside her surged, curious and cautious. I'm afraid of myself, she admitted, voice breaking. I can't control it. The fire, the power inside me. I've hurt those I love. I can't risk. Kael's hand found hers. His fingers wrapped around hers, strong but gentle. The contact was electric, the warmth spreading through her like molten silver in her veins. Then trust me, he whispered. Or leave. But don't let fear rule you. Arin's breath hitched. Their hands lingered together, the rhythm of their pulses syncing, two hearts trembling in the silence. He felt a pull, deep, magnetic, and undeniable. Her wolf growled softly, not in anger but in recognition, in awareness of a kindred power beside her. They sat there, firelight flickering across their faces, each revealing pieces of vulnerability. Kael's eyes softened as he spoke of his scars, the betrayals he had endured, the nights spent alone with only his wolf for company. Arin's voice broke the quiet as she confessed her fear, the shame of exile, and the burden of the 7 tiny lives she carried on her shoulders. The world felt suspended, caught between the river's rush and the whispering forest. Their hands brushed again, fingers entwining almost by accident, almost by fate. Their breaths met in the cold night air, warm against each other. And then the moment hovered, the almost kiss, the unspoken desire, the pull of destiny and fear colliding. The pups stirred, nudging her gently, reminding her of the fragile lives around her. And yet, in that space she felt the possibility of connection, of trust, of the first fragile seed of hope that perhaps she was not doomed to face the world alone. The morning light broke over the packlands with a deceptive serenity. The calm, however, was only a mask. Rumors had spread like wildfire during the night, whispers carried through shadowed corridors, teeth bared behind polite smiles. The council had gathered again, more alphas now, all eyes fixed on Arin as she walked through the valley with the pups trotting nervously at her heels. "You," a voice cut sharp as steel. "We know who you really are. The flame bearer." Every eye turned. Gasps, growls, murmurs. Their accusations fell like rocks into the lake of her composure. "The prophecy," someone hissed, "she will destroy the throne. She brings war, not peace. She is not welcome." Arin froze. The world seemed to tilt, the air heavy, thick with betrayal. Kael's wolf surged beside him, low and warning, but even his presence could not anchor the storm of rejection building around her. Someone lunged for the pups, claws raised. Time slowed. Every instinct screamed in unison. Mother, protector, survivor. Arin's hands flared with silver fire, her power erupting uncontrollably for the first time since the prophecy had named her. Flames danced around her like living serpents, silver and blinding, scorching the ground, twisting the air with heat and energy. The attackers yelped, stumbling back, fear and awe colliding. The pups whimpered but pressed closer, huddled in a trembling circle of warmth. Kael's eyes were fixed on her, amber and sharp, but even he hesitated. She felt it, the fractional doubt, the flicker of fear in his gaze, and her heart shattered. He had not doubted her before, but now in the face of raw, unleashed power even he paused. She could not stay. She would not. The weight of the world pressed against her chest, the accusations, the fear, the unrelenting judgment. She turned, running into the dense forest beyond the valley, her wolf surging to meet the raw surge of silver fire inside her. Behind her, the world burned with the reflection of her power, the pack's outrage and the fury of those who could not understand. The pups raced after her, small and loyal, weaving through the underbrush, their faith in her unshakable. And somewhere behind, Kael's roar echoed, a promise, a warning, a plea, but it could not reach her fast enough. She ran into the shadows, the world behind her erupting in chaos, and the prophecy whispered in the wind, "The flame bearer has begun." The valley was silent before she returned. The calm was deceptive. A fragile veil stretched over the chaos that had erupted just hours before. Smoke curled from burned brush where the pack had attempted to subdue her. Faint paw prints scattered in the mud, evidence of flight and fear, of loyalty clinging to the edges of destruction. Arin emerged from the shadowed trees, her body tense, her eyes glowing faintly with the silver fire that simmered beneath her skin. Every step she took reverberated through the ground as though the earth itself recognized her presence, trembling beneath the weight of destiny. The pups scrambled to follow, their small bodies brushing against hers as if their very existence depended on the strength she radiated. And perhaps it did. Ahead chaos waited. The villain, tall, shadowed and unnaturally still, stood atop a cliff, eyes burning with the darkness that had haunted her dreams. The shadow alpha, the one tied to her past, exhaled, voice like a rasping wind, cold and mocking. "You've returned. But for whom, flame bearer? For them? Or for your own folly?" Arin's wolf growled low, a rumble echoing through the hollow valley, responding to the predator's taunt. She clenched her fists, feeling the silver flame coil beneath her skin like a living serpent. Her voice rose, steady and unwavering, carrying the weight of every betrayal, every stolen moment, every life she had sworn to protect. "I will not burn for your fear. I burn for those I love." The words hung in the air. The ground trembled as if echoing her declaration. Trees ignited, their branches licked by silver flame, illuminating the valley with ethereal light. The air shimmered, charged with energy so potent it made the hair on Kael's neck bristle. He stepped forward, his presence a grounding force, but he did not intervene. This was hers. Every ounce of fear, doubt, and power now belonged to Arin, claimed and wielded with absolute purpose. From the shadows, ghostly figures began to rise. Ancient wolves long vanished from the earth. Their forms glimmered like moonlight captured in fur, eyes luminous and fixed on Arin with silent acknowledgement. They howled, a chorus that shook the valley, affirming what she had always suspected but feared. She was not just a survivor. She was a force, a conduit of ancestral power that had been waiting for her awakening. The shadow Alpha snarled, claws digging into stone, trying to summon fear, to fracture the unity of her resolve. But it was too late. Arin's power radiated outward, a tidal wave of energy, silver flames spiraling and twisting, weaving around her like a crown of living light. The villain's shadow faltered, flickering as if the darkness itself feared the purity and fury of her fire. The pups whimpered, but their fear was mingled with awe. Tiny bodies bristling, tails low yet defiant, they mirrored her stance. Every heartbeat, every breath, every pulse of their fragile forms synchronized with hers, a living testament that she was not alone, that she never had been. They had chosen her as much as she had chosen them. Kael approached cautiously, his amber eyes locked on hers. He did not speak. Words were unnecessary. He had watched her grow from a frightened, fleeing Omega into the embodiment of prophecy itself. His gaze conveyed admiration, awe, and an understanding that went beyond language. In this moment she was unstoppable, and he knew that no counsel, no rival, no shadow could ever claim her. The ground cracked under the weight of her fury. Rocks split and tumbled into the valley, the air vibrating with raw power. The silver fire surged higher, stretching toward the sky, forming ethereal shapes, wolves, flames, ancestors, all intertwining with her. She felt the connection to every generation that had fought and fallen before her. Their strength flowed into her not as chains but as wings. And then finally she confronted the shadow Alpha directly. He lunged, black as night, claws snapping toward her. Time slowed. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought focused on one truth. She was not a sacrifice. She would no longer be bound by fear, expectation, or the judgments of those who could not understand her. With a single motion, silver fire erupted from her palms, a torrent of raw, cleansing power that struck the shadow Alpha, sending him flying into the jagged rocks below. Silence fell. The valley held its breath, the wind stilled, the pups nestled close, shivering not from fear, but from the awe of what had just unfolded. The ancient wolves faded, leaving only a lingering glow in the air, the promise that she was part of something larger, eternal, unstoppable. The world seemed suspended in the silver glow of aftermath. Smoke drifted lazily through the air, carrying the scent of burnt earth and the echo of unleashed power. The shadow Alpha was defeated, but the danger was far from over. Arin knelt beside the pups, hands shaking slightly as she gathered them close, breath coming in uneven, powerful gusts. A whisper carried through the valley, barely audible over the crackling fire. Is she salvation, or a storm waiting to break? Arin lifted her head, eyes scanning the horizon, the wind tangling her hair around her face. Would you fear her, or follow her? The words lingered, not spoken to anyone in particular, but reaching into the listener's soul, asking a question impossible to ignore. The scene softened. The pups' small heads pressed against hers, their warmth grounding her, reminding her that she fought not for power, not for glory, but for love. And Kael stood just beyond, silent, unwavering, the protector she did not yet realize she had always needed. The narrator's voice softened, intimate, almost a whisper. If her fire touched your heart, subscribe to Anne's Romance Collections. Here we tell stories that burn, heal, and stay with you long after the night ends. Your heart will know, your soul will feel it, and you will never forget the flame-bearer's journey. The moon hung low, silver and full, casting elongated shadows across the forest floor. Arin and Kael walked side by side, the pups trailing, small silhouettes against the glow. Each step was measured, deliberate, A quiet assertion of power tempered by love. The ground trembled again beneath them, not a quake of fear but of awakening. Something deeper, older waited. A voice emerged from the darkness, silky, distant, yet filled with undeniable power. She is not the only one awakening. The shadows shifted. Silence followed. The silver glow lingered, then faded into darkness. The screen of imagination closed. Hearts pounded. Breath caught. The story was over. For now.